Hey everybody, this is going to be a super newbie guide on how to set up the Noodle open source version on a Mac, because I'm using a Mac, so it's the only one I can show you at the moment. But the process is going to be very much similar on Windows or Linux. So I'm going to show you several parts today. I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible and not ramble like I usually do. This is a hardcore, speedy newbie guide. So we're going to look at downloading the Noodle editor. When you're in your testing phase, this would be my first recommendation. So if you're a super newbie, you should only really be in the testing phase at the moment. So we're going to download the editor. We're going to set up the cloud service in Docker because I'm recommending that you start using Noodle playing with the cloud service. It's the easiest way to get started with the backend, with the database and with cloud functions. Then setting up a GitHub repo and connecting your editor to it so that you can push your project and keep it safe and have a immutable backed up version of it somewhere. And then we'll look at how to get into the production part, so how to set up your S3 on AWS and then setting up something like App Runner and other services. Although I've actually written a guide on this already, and the Noodle guide on this is actually pretty good. So I don't think I'm going to record much about this today. I'll just do the S3 part because the Noodle guide is not good for the S3 part. There is no Noodle guide, I think, for the S3 part. So I already recorded something, but it was too disorganized. So we're going to record something quick on that today as well. So let's start with the Noodle editor. We got to go to the github.com/noodlapp repo. This the organization, sorry, not repo. We're going to go and find in the repositories. And we're going to go find the Noodle Cloud Service repository. We're going to go, I'm going to do this the simple way, like the most basic possible. No, I'm not going to use VS Code. I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm just going to do everything easy. So go to code, go to download zip. That's going to download the Noodle Cloud Service zip, which you can then click and it will unzip into a folder if you're on Mac, or otherwise you'll have to do some Windows unzipping stuff to make that work. Then on Mac, we have a nice little feature, which is right-clicking on that and going to Services on that folder, and then go to New Terminal, Add Folder. We need to run this folder in your terminal. It's nothing scary, super simple. Before we get to that part, though, we need to make sure we have Docker installed. So you probably don't or may not have Docker installed. So just type in Docker, go to docker.com, go to Get Started, go to download on whatever version you have, either Mac, Intel, or Apple chip, Windows or Linux. Installing Docker may start installing on Mac, for example. It told me to install developer tools to use Git. So it started installing developer tools there as well, but I didn't even have to wait for it to finish before opening Docker and getting started. So download Docker, install it, open it up. You don't need to sign up. It's going to tell you that you need to have a subscription. You don't need to. They want to push to a subscription service, but you can just say to run without logging in and just open it up locally like this without anything special. You don't need to do anything, don't need to touch anything, just it's open, that's all that matters. Next step is go back to your folder where we had I downloaded the zip and I unzipped it, the Noodle Cloud Service. Go in there, we need to edit the docker-compose file. That's a file that tells Docker what it needs to load up to make this cloud service work. There's a couple of things. There's parse and there's mongodb, the database. So this is going to, I use BB Edit. It's a really simple text editor that's handy for editing code on the fly without having to open up VS Code. So if you can just use text edit as well, it doesn't matter. You can use whatever the heck you want. It's just a text file. So yeah, BB code makes it look like a code file with all the numbers down the side, but it could just equally be in a text file or like open it up in Microsoft Word. It doesn't matter as long as you can save it. I mean, it's a .yml file, so probably Word won't recognize it. Text edit will probably recognize it and let you open it. You just have to insist a bit maybe. The bits in here we need to edit. So there are two services that are going to run on this, the MongoDB service. So it's going to run a database inside Docker. The cool thing about Docker, I'm not going to ramble, I promise, but just the cool thing about Docker is that it's running things like MongoDB or other kinds of libraries in a container in like this little isolated environment inside your computer. It's almost like a little virtual machine inside your computer. So it means that you don't have to worry about installing dependencies into your Mac or into your Windows PC directly. You can let Docker take care of all that, and just, you don't have to worry about, oh, there's an error because my PC isn't compatible with this version of MongoDB or some crap like that. Don't need to worry about that. So what we need to edit in here is the MongoDB root username and password. You don't have to do anything fancy here because you're running it locally on your machine. But just put in something like Richard and password. If you were doing this for real and running this backend in your own server somewhere with your own Docker, then you would obviously put a really a good, like your username, but like a really strong password here. Because this should be protected. This would be running in Docker, but somebody could hack into it if they find out those details. If it was running in production, if you're running it on your own server and in the cloud, but this is just running locally, so whatever. Then the cloud service parts we need to do, it is so port 3000 we can leave. If you were running several different cloud services, you could run on several different ports. So you could have cloud service for project 1 could be running on port 3000. Cloud service for project 2 could be 3001. Project 3 would be 3002. Just means that you could theoretically have them all running at the same time in Docker, not have to kind of shut one down, start one up again, because you can't have the same service running. Different services can't run on the same port. So it's just a little tip. Master key for the cloud service is important because you're going to put that in Noodle later. So let's just do password again. App ID is going to be the ID that you enter into Noodle for this specific database cloud service. So let's put in test app 1 or something. Database URI, you need to put in, so replace your username with the username that you put in for MongoDB. Richard in my case, replace your password with the password. And that's it. Everything else can stay the same. Localhost 3000, if you were changing this port here, then you have to change it here as well to 3001 or 3002 if you want to. And here as well, ports would be 3001 to 3001 if you were changing it, but I'm not changing it. So save that file, exit. Now we're ready. Docker's open. The docker-compose.yml file has been updated. We can go into our terminal, which is open in that folder. If it's not, then navigate to that folder, do change directory users/Richard and find your way to that folder through your terminal. But the easiest way is, even in Mac, what you can do is to change directory and then drag the directory you want in there, and then that'll change to that directory. So that's another handy way to do it. But we just need to be in this main directory so that when we type docker compose up, it's going to look for the docker compose YAML file. So we need to be in that directory for that to work. So docker compose up. So Docker is downloading and installing and running all of the different things that are needed to do this cloud service, to run the cloud service in the background. So while that's doing what it's doing, we're going to move on, do something else. We're going to go to the Noodle organization again, and we're going to look at the Noodle, the main Noodle repository, because in here, so this is the source code for the Noodle editor. You don't need to worry about this unless you're planning on doing any changes and tweaks to it. But most people are just going to want to go down to download releases and look for the pre-built binaries. That means things like a damage file for Mac or an executable file for Windows. So we're going to want the, I'm on an M1 chip, so I'm on the ARM64 version, which is the Silicon version. If you're on an Intel Mac, then it's the regular one, and if you're on Windows, it's this one. So this one I want, so click that one. Download it, install it. I've already installed it, so I'll just show you. No, I haven't. Oh, no, I deleted it. I wanted this to be a real serious attempt. So it's still, our Docker thing is still installing, and nothing has come up here yet, which means that there's no container yet. It's still working on getting it going, but we can just leave that in the background. It's important not to close the terminal window, and even when it's running, don't close the terminal window, just keep it open. So open up and drag Noodle Editor into Applications, or install it if you're on Windows. And then we can go in and find Noodle Editor. open her up. Yes, of course I want to open it. I love Noodle. Why would I want to block it? So I've already created a test project, but at this point you would create a project. Or if you're coming to the open source version from 2.9.2, the commercial version of Noodle, then you're going to want to go to open folder and find where your project is. So like my projects from before, I think are still in here. Yeah, I have Noodle backup folder or something like that, Noodle projects. So they're all given unique IDs. You would need to go into Noodle 2.9.2 and find the project that you want, go to settings and go to open project folder, and it'll show you which folder it's inside. So it say, oh, my project is AB9A6, blah, blah, blah. So that's the one I want to open. So they would open that folder and it would open that project inside inside here. It would import it into here. So we're just going to do a fresh project. You're a total newbie, imagine, and you're just coming to this for the first time. You can do the tutorials, they're fun. And then afterwards you go to create project, and then let's say we're going to start with the task manager app just for fun. I'm going to call it test project. We're going to put it in somewhere in our computer. So I would recommend you do like I've done and go somewhere safe. Like I have my documents backed up into iCloud. So it's another way of backing it up. Why not have it backed up as many times as possible just to be safe? Create yourself a folder called Noodle projects, which is what I've already done. And then that's where you're going to open up to put your project in. So now we've got our task manager app in there, and it's going to want that we use a backend. So we're going to need that backend running there, guys. Yes. So this should be what you see when the backend is running. Noodle's cloud service will automatically install a MongoDB database and will create lots of data in there to fit what Parse is doing. So Parse installs like users and session management and role management for row level security, stuff like that. So this is all good. What I'm seeing here is good. We don't close the terminal because it's actively running. And we go to Docker and you'll see, oh, look, there we go. I have two services running on Noodle Cloud. I have the cloud service and the MongoDB. So it's all good. It's all running. It's all happy. And Docker will take care of it for us. Now we go to our Noodle editor. We go to cloud services. We go to add cloud service. We call this, what was it called? To-do list app backend, whatever you want. Description if you need to, just to keep an eye, to keep track of which backend is for which project. Because each backend represents a database. So you'll actually have access to all of your backends through the editor in every project, just because they're all connected up to your Noodle editor, but you're only going to use one per project, probably. So the endpoint is HTTP, sorry, because you're in localhost $.3000. So that reflects what we put into BB edit in the YAML compose file. This one, yeah. So it's, the endpoint is this public server URL. The application ID is what you put into app ID, so it's test app one. And the master key is what you put in the master key, which for me was just generic password, and I think I just accidentally closed it. Did I? I did. Gosh dang it. Oh no, it's okay. Saved it. Password. Thank goodness. So name, you need the endpoint to be right, you need the application ID to be right, and the password to be right. Create cloud service. If it has worked, then click it. Go use in editor. So now this becomes your backend that the editor is connected to. Why does that matter? Because the nodes that you're going to use later on, like create record or to query records, to delete records, create records, all that stuff is now connected to that backend. And these cloud data nodes only work with the Noodle backend. So you have to have a Noodle backend installed to be able to, for example, go create a new record, to create a new user, for example. That all that stuff goes through the Noodle backend. If you're using Supabase or Xano, awesome, go that way, that's cool. But I'm just saying for beginners, this is a really good way to get started fast. So now I can create records and they will appear in my little MongoDB here in my Docker container. So that was that. What was the next steps? I try to keep myself on track. So we set up the Noodle cloud service. We've connected it. That's great. Oh, double check that it's working. So go to your cloud service and go to Open Dashboard, and you should see role and user at least. If you don't see anything here, it's because something's gone wrong. So I would just delete the Docker thing, delete the Docker container, go back to the start again. Look for errors, copy paste errors into ChatGPT if you see any, because it'll probably help you to figure out, oh, you got error, blah, blah, blah. That means you don't have Git installed or something. So you need to do that, and here's how you do it. ChatGPT can give you that information to help you debug these things. But yeah, if you see role and user, you're golden. Then you can add things, try and add a row to role, just add like with the ACL and tests role, something like that. That wrote the line, so that's perfect. So everything's working great. It's awesome. Okay, so now we're going to want to back up our project to make sure it's safe. We're going to go to version control, and we're going to go initialize version control git. So it's going to start a local git for this project. We are on the main branch, which is just because it's a new project, but we need to have a remote location to push it to keep it safe. So we need to have a Git location. So we're going to go to GitHub. You're going to create yourself a GitHub account. It's free. You're going to get into your repositories. You're going to create a new repository. You're going to call it to-do list test app or whatever you want. It's your repository, so it should probably be available. You can make it private if you don't want it to be public. I would probably recommend that you make it private so that people don't have access to your project files. And you're going to not do any of these things, not to have a README, not to git ignore anything. You're just going to do it fresh. At the time of making this video, you really need to make it a empty, fresh repository. So just create repository. Okay, nothing in it, easy peasy. We just need to take this link here. Quick setup. If you've done this kind of thing before, take this link, copy it, put it into here. It's going to ask you for a personal access token. So we're going to go back to GitHub. We're going to go to settings. I'm going blind. There we go, settings. We're going to go down to developer settings. We're going to go to personal access tokens. We're going to go to tokens classic. We're going to go to generate new token, token classic. We're going to put a note in here. We'll say this is the to-do list test app. We're going to never expire it because we're going to need this for all of the future of the project. You could always create a new token and just replace the token that's in Noodle. It's no big deal. And we're going to give it full repo access, and that's it. We don't need anything else. I don't even know if it needs full repo access. It might not, but I'm just doing it just in case. So give it full repo access, nothing else, just for safety. Create that token. Here it is. Copy it because I don't think you won't be able to see it again. So make sure you copy it, like highlight it as well, just in case the copy button in the browser doesn't work. Try not to copy it with any spaces because then that's not going to work. Maybe put it somewhere safe. Keep it somewhere safe if you can. Go back to your editor, put in the personal access token, and then your name for when you deploy things is going to be Richard deploying things, and it's going to be my email that's referenced to deploying things. So save that, and then push main branch. It's going to push all of your project files that are local, the ones that you saw locally on the computer that I showed you earlier in the project folder. They're all going to get pushed into GitHub and safely stored. And every time you make changes, push those changes, commit them, type I made some changes. Like if I move this or delete this, for example, then I can say I made some changes. I can commit those changes, which you can see here, with the changes we made are in the app page. Commit those changes, push the local commit. It's going to make a new version of your app. So now we have two commits in our GitHub. If we go back to GitHub to double check that it's working, refresh the page. Oh no, go back to your repos. Go to your to-do list app, and ta-da! All the folder files that we had on our local machine are now up here, and we can add a README file now if we want to explain the project if you're collaborating with others. It means that you could give this link to other people with an access token, and then they would be able to collaborate on this project, they would be able to download this project folder from GitHub with this link in their own editor. They'll be able to push their own changes. You can make branches then, make a new branch. So make like if I'm working with Janine, make a Janine branch and push to that branch if you're Janine, and I'll push to my branch, Richard branch, and then we can merge into main. And if you don't know about GitHub and Git and merging and all those things, you just have to learn that stuff, because this is how we would work if you're not collaborating with anyone else. Don't worry about it. You can just push them in, and it's just a nice way to save your project files and keep them safe. So that's it. We've pushed to Git. Now our project is fully active and local, but active. So that is awesome. We've done that. Now we want to actually push it live to the web. So we're going to use AWS for that, because you may say, why AWS? Because it's easy. And we're saying we're making an easy noob video today. Well, I'm going to show you how to do things the easy way. That's the service that I provide. If you want to do it the hard way, I mean, you can do Google Cloud Service. It's not that much more difficult. But you could also do your own hosting, like DigitalOcean and things like that run Docker containers and buckets and stuff like that. So there's plenty of options out there. You could have your own server if you want. But this is just a super easy way to do it. So we want to deploy our project. We're going to go to S3 in AWS. AWS is free. S3 will cost you peanuts. It is like fractions of a cent per month, because nobody's going to access your app, and S3 is mostly on access pricing, not really on storage pricing. Like the storage is piddly prices, like, I don't know, $1 per 100 gigabytes or something like that per month. So you're not going to take up a lot of space. The projects in Noodle are like a few megabytes, and if you add images to your project, it'll get bigger, but whatever. So let's say we want to publish our to-do list app to AWS. So we're going to create a bucket, create it wherever the hell you want, call it to-do list app. We're going to say ACL's enabled. We're going to say bucket owner preferred. Doesn't matter why, just do it. We're not going to block all public access. We're going to allow all public access. I'm sure there's a way to make this more granular and to make it better security-wise, but I'm just showing you how to do it the easy way. So just take off all public access blocks. I acknowledge that that's super dangerous. We don't need bucket versioning. We can just take the default encryption. Don't need a bucket key. I think there's no other things. Yeah, just create bucket. Good to go. Oh, what's the problem? Oh, yeah, sorry to mention, the bucket has to be a unique bucket name in the whole Amazon universe. So it doesn't matter what the bucket name is, really, to be honest. So just call it to-do list app Noodle or something like that. It has to just be a unique name through the whole Amazon space, which is annoying, but there you go. So create that bucket. Okay, go into to-do list app Noodle. Go to, I'll try to remember this from memory. There's like a guide on how to do this somewhere, but go to properties, go down all the way to the bottom to static website hosting, edit, enable, host a static website. Index document is index.html, and super important, the error document is also index.html. If you don't do that, then it won't be able to do the page navigation properly. So index is index and error is index.html. Save changes. That's it. And now you're going to have a web address. So let's open that up. There will be nothing in there. It will be empty. Ta-da! So, but we have it open. That's cool. So let's go back to objects. Let's go to our Noodle project. We're going to upload it now to AWS. So we're going to go deploy, self-hosting. We're going to link it to our to-do list backend cloud service. That will deploy it and tell it to look for that cloud service. Pick folder. We're going to deploy it to whatever a folder called my to-do list app export. Put it in there. Okay, and then we're going to go to that file. Is it in documents? Yeah. Okay, all of this stuff here has to go in here. So we've deployed it, but we have to put it in the internet, or else it won't work. So I think, can we drag and drop there, or I have to go upload first? Yeah, I can drag and drop. I click upload and then here I can drag and drop. So let's drag and drop. Here we go. Okay, super important. Go down to permissions, access control, this all good. Grant public read access. If you don't do this, you can't see your website. I understand the risks, but I really would like to see my website upload. Then we just gotta wait for that to finish. 4.3 megs, so it's really like piddly, like you will pay a fraction of a cent per month for hosting, and you're the only one who's gonna access it. Amazon will make you pay for every time somebody accesses your website through the bucket. So at the moment, you're gonna pay like peanuts. And even when you get lots of users, you're probably not gonna pay much. This is the front end part. I haven't got to the back end part yet. So gravy. It has been uploaded. Close that, go here, refresh that, and ta-da! It's deployed. So we have a unsecure, horrible looking link, but it is in the internet right now, and you can go and access it if you go to this website. Awesome. So to go further with that, you would need to get all the stuff like CDN, the Amazon CDN, Amazon SSL. I have another video about that where I muddle through how to do that, how to get a HTTPS address with your own domain name for this. So you can go and see that video if you need to get information about that. The very final step then is we need to go to App Runner. We need to go to the Noodle docs. Oh, hang on. We're going to go to the GitHub Noodle docs, of course, because the Noodle docs probably don't even exist anymore when you're watching this video, because they took down the website, I imagine, at some point. So we're going to go back to Noodle app. And we're going to go to the docs. And we're going to look for, self-hosted. No. Deploy. Embedding hosted front end. Setting up a backend on AWS. Here we go. So that's in docs, guides, deploy, setting up backend on AWS. So container registry. Is that still? Oh, it's not as good as it used to be. This. Okay, I'm going to go to the docs to help you out here, because if the docs don't exist anymore, which would be very sad, at least then I can show you what the docs used to look like. AWS, hosting your front end on the AWS, setting up a back end on the AWS. Here we go. Where is it? Setting up your back end on AWS. There's also a Google Cloud Console guide as well. App Runner, create service. Here we go. Oh, it is this. It's still the same. Okay. Oh, they've actually updated it as well. That's very good. Okay, so maybe the GitHub wasn't so bad after all. So we need to go to App Runner. We need to create a new App Runner service. We're going to do it on container registry, and I think it's ECR public. I'll try that out. Yeah, ECR public. That's it. So ECR public, and then we put in the repo. So this will clone the image of the deployment of the same sort of thing what we did on Docker, but just using App Runner instead. Which is their version of Docker. Deployment trigger manual. That's fine. We're going to call this to-do list app backend. We're going to give it 1 vCPU, but you can also give it, like, if you're just doing this like for testing, why don't you just do like 0.5 vCPU and 1 gigabyte of RAM? Do like a really mini server, because it'll cost you like $5 a month instead of like the one. I think the one vCPU with 2 gigs is like $10 a month. So do like the cheap one to get started. And then environment variables, we need to set that up. So we're going to set up, where is it? Right. The port of the application needs to be set to 3000. Where's that? Here we go. Port 3000. And then we need to do the environment variables app ID. I like to copy and paste them so I don't make mistakes. And it is plain text app ID, and it's going to be called to-do list app. This is kind of the same stuff as the docker-compose YAML that we did earlier. So now you're starting to get used to all this stuff. It's cool. Master key is password. You should write this stuff down somewhere as well, so that when you come to installing it in your, like setting this up in your project, you don't get confused and forget things. Database URI. Oh crap! Yeah, we have to go set up a database. So I don't have a database URI yet. So we have to go to. So if you want to do MongoDB is the best way to do it with App Runner. So we're going to do MongoDB Atlas because again, very very cheap or free. Actually, I think they have a free database that we could use. So let's just very quickly set something up in there. MongoDB start for free. This is cooler actually than Docker because you can actually, I have an account already, you can go in and see the data in the database with MongoDB, with Atlas, or with Compass if you're running locally on a MongoDB. But yeah, if you install the MongoDB yourself, then you're actually running with something that you can go and have a look at and see what's going on inside the database. Yeah, there's a bus. So this is really a very self-hosted own way of doing things. Like you don't even have to do a MongoDB in Atlas. You could do it somewhere else, but Atlas is really a very handy way to do it. So I wouldn't really do it any other way myself personally. So we're going to make a new database, create a database. So it's going to be a shared database because it's a cheap one. We're going to use AWS, which is quite funny. We're going to use whatever. I mean, you can also use Google Cloud or Azure. You can use whatever you want. It doesn't actually matter. This is just where Atlas is going to store it. I'm going to run it on a Paris server. We're going to run it on something very low, M0 sandbox. Oh, I already have one sandbox. Okay, well, fine. We're going to run it on an M2 then, I guess. And I'll just delete it afterwards. And then I think that's all we need for that. If you can have like backups and stuff if you want to pay more. Oh, it already has backups on M2. That's cool. I mean, it is only like $9 a month for the whole database, and this would be 2 gigabytes of storage is good enough for like your first few hundred users or whatever, and probably more. So, oh crap, do I not have a payment method? No, of course I don't have a payment method. Okay. So this would be the moment where you would create your MongoDB. It will give you, let's see if I can get a database URI to show you. Go away. I already have a database here. Learnbook, which you've probably seen before. Connect. You're going to go to drivers, I think. Node.js 5.5, I guess. And then this, I think, is the address that you need, but there's something you need to modify in there, and I can't remember what it was. Let's have a look. It's there somewhere. Here we go, database, got it. Database access cluster connects, node 3.6. And then you, okay, no, it's fine. Okay, cool. Okay, here we go. So 3.6 nodes, and then we take this link, and you have to edit the link and make it, where is it? So you have to put in your admin password. Where did we generate an admin password? Database access. Oh yeah, admin user and database access. Get the password for your admin user, and then put that in where it says like so admin double point password, which I think it did actually put in there for me. Oh no, it didn't. Yeah, so you need to go and find the user that I set up, a user called Richard, and the password that I set up for that user I put in here, and the user Richard had full access to the database. And then you're going to replace, so cluster 0 blah blah mongodb and rewrite tries equals whatever, and then yeah, you want to add noodle-db or something like that after the address that you see here. So you see the way this is like learnbook.blah.blah.mongodb.net / and then immediately there's a parameter. Put like noodle-db in here or something like that, and it gives it a unique space that it can open up a database. So add the password, put your noodle-db name in there, and then copy this whole thing, and that's what you're going to put into the database URI for AppRunner. Ta-da! Okay, nearly there. Where were our other? Okay, come on. So we've done that, and now we're adding our variables. Okay, last thing is public server URL. So this you need if you want to do cloud files, if you want to have files uploaded. I have a whole guide about that, a written guide, so it's really easy to follow on how to do that and how to put that into your public server URL. So just go and have a look at that guide and you'll see what to do for that. But otherwise we're good. I think we've set up everything we need. Because yeah, the file storage guide sucks, so I did my own one. Okay, so we've done our database thing. That's fine. It's not going to work, but it's we're setting it up just to have a look at it. Auto scaling, cool, eh? So it means you can, if you get more demand into the database, then it will scale your database. So anyway, we're not going to go into that right now. Instance role we don't need, I don't think. Networking or all that stuff we don't need. Next. To do this pattern, okay. And then create and deploy. Okay, so now we have the endpoint for our app runner thing. So like we had localhost 3000 before, now we have a domain that we can use for setting up our Noodle project. So you would actually want to set up a new, this would be, say that this is going to be your dev database, and now we're going to set up the production database. So this is going to be to-do list app production. The endpoint is going to be that endpoint from Amazon. The application ID is going to be, what did I say it was, to-do list app, and the master key was password, I think, wasn't it? Or did I even put one in? I can't remember. And there we go. So this is to-do list app prod, open in dashboard. It's going to tell me there's a problem because there's no database to connect to. So there you go, it doesn't work because we didn't put in a correct URI for the database because I don't want it to override my entire database. So, because I'm actually using LearnBook at the moment, so that would not be good. But anyway, that gives you the idea of how you should put in the Amazon one in here. So we use that in the editor. When we want to deploy to production, then we choose the production backend, pick a folder, deploy it to that folder, and then when we deploy it to our S3 bucket, the S3 version, this version that we had here, this deployed AWS version, will go and look for the app runner database instead of your local one, which doesn't apply here because the local database is only on your local machine. So AWS cannot go into your local machine to get that database, that backend. So the backend you've just deployed in app runner must be the one that you select here to deploy to folder, and then deploy that folder those folder contents into S3, and then this website will have the right thing to look for. It'll have something that it can look for locally in the Amazon services that you have to be able to connect to the backend. And that's it. So then you would have your local version, which you would run and test with, the backend. You would click with this one, so like that's when we want to test it out, we want to use this one in the editor, the self-hosted local one that's running in Docker. And then when you want to post to live, then you're going to have this AWS production database. You're going to be able to go in and have a look at that, check the data that's going on in there, keep that data separate from the local backend, which you're just going to have test data in there. So if Docker messes up and it deletes the whole database, you don't care. But yeah, the production one, you're going to keep that safe within Amazon and keep backups and stuff. And then just work with that deploy to production when you want to deploy it in the way that you would run it in, put it in S3 to run it in to run your live version, your production version in the internet. And I think that is it. So good luck. I hope that was helpful. And I'll record further videos if there's any other questions about anything we've seen today. But that was a pretty quick run through. So, I mean, as quick as it could have been. So I hope that's helped, and I hope that helps people get started and helps you start having fun and experimenting with Noodle. So good luck, and see you in a future video.